Okay, I've just come from a presentation that was so interesting that I'm skipping the start of the next presentation to do this interview. This is with Ben Scafidi, who was talking of all things mathematics and statistics, which, although it excites me, it actually incited everybody in that room. Can you briefly tell us what you revealed to us concerning school choice and spending?
Sure. American public schools like to argue that school choice is going to take their money when kids leave. To think about this, though, we have to look at what spending choices have they been making for decade after decade after decade. American public schools have been adding staff for at least 60 years at a rate much greater than their increase in students. Who have these new staff been that they've been hiring? They've hired a lot of new teachers to cut class sizes, but disproportionately, they've hired more administrators and other staff. They've hired more administrators and other staff at a rate that's 7 times greater than their increase in students.
So basically, if the student increase is 10%, the staff increase has been 70% overall.
Correct.
And in some states where you've had student numbers actually drop, administrators numbers have gone up, and the whole room was gasping at those numbers.
Yes, and public schools like to say they have a lot of fixed costs. These costs are not fixed. They grow at a rate faster than the increase in students. They're very variable. And so public schools can lose funding when they lose students, just like every other enterprise in America, like colleges, like pre-Ks, like grocery stores, like car companies, like Apple, like Microsoft, like everybody. If you lose a customer, you don't get paid for it.
And you noted that this issue is not a partisan issue, per se. This happens in Republican and Democrat districts.
It does. It happens in Republican Democratic districts, happens in Republican Democratic states. It's going on everywhere. That staffing has been going up at a rate much higher than the increase in students.
And you also noted that the same people who are arguing that, well, I have fixed cost if you take away my student, are arguing you have to give me more money because we have more students. So it's a big contradiction.
So when it's school choice debate, they argue all their costs are fixed. But when it's a debate about funding new students, they argue all their costs are variable. They're having it both ways. That shouldn't be.
And from what I understand, this information, this data, isn't something that you grab. This is government data that the states send by law to the feds, and with the exception of New York, which apparently their data was so unbelievable that the feds didn't. Even this administration was not willing to believe New York, which is an amazing thing. A lie too. It's like the Doctor Who line: a lie too big for anyone to believe.
That's exactly right. This is data that state departments of education report to the U.S. Department of Education. So it's publicly available. Anyone can
everybody can know this. How is it that like a Donald Trump hasn't grabbed on this? Or how isn't that a governor running for a state that has budget issues hasn't grabbed on this? How is it? This would seem to be this is a gimme issue. How is it that people aren't grabbing this?
I agree. Governor Perdue in Georgia, who I work for, he embraced the 65% solution to say that at least 65% of funds should be spent in the classroom. I think things like that are good things, but as I said in the talk, there's a real lack of transparency about public school staffing and public school spending, and the culprit is state departments of education underreport spending, underreport staffing, and those are official numbers in state debates in the media and in state capitals and in state courthouses debating school funding. So part of it is just getting the truth out there about how much public schools really have in terms of staff and how much in spending.
Well, are there any consequences for lying, though?
No, apparently not.
That's
decade after decade after decade.
Okay, if people want to find out more about this data, and believe me, if you're listening to this, you want to find out more about this data, where can they go?
All right, go to edchoice.org, click on menu, and then click on research, and you can see my papers on the staffing surge. You can see lots of other research on similar topics. I encourage your readers.
Ben Scafidi, thank you so much for your time, and it was an incredible presentation.
Thank you. Thanks for your interest.